Don't mind that man behind the curtain. In chapter 26, Ishmael even tips his hand. Remember I talked about that? What does he tip his hand to? He's going to be emphasizing certain things and maybe, in fact, embellishing things in order to highlight the nobility of these common people, right? And I was trying to explain that here we have someone who's telling you right to your face he is not entirely reliable, although he's maybe reliably unreliable, if you understand what I mean, because we know what he's up to. He told us, okay? All right, and then, of course, the final thing we saw was Ahab coming on deck, and he just is the picture of firmness, right? Sternness, silence. He unnerves everyone, right? Okay, so let's do this now. Let's talk about chapter 35, the masthead. All right. So the masthead is important for several reasons. One, it's really the first of a whole series of chapters which are what I call technical chapters. All right, so make a note of this. So one of the things that makes this book unusual and characterizes it is that not only in chapters like 24, like Advocate, where you get this little sort of essay about things that Ishmael's thinking, but you'll have these chapters that are technical chapters where Ishmael will explain to you certain elements of the whaling industry that you couldn't possibly know. Hello? Right? That are really lost now, right? And no one knows them now because no one's doing it now. And he is going to stop action and just explain the situation, right? Now, one of these is just, why do this? Well, one is I think, I was just kind of getting at this, it's documentary, right? This industry is gone, and he is kind of laying down on paper something that you can't see this anywhere in the world anymore. The other one is it's thematic, because, look, what did we just mention? What was thematic in chapter 24? What's the claim? You need to answer me right now. What's the claim? Yeah, whalemen are dignified, noble, remarkable, right? Well, did you see remarkable things in this chapter? Yeah. Don't just say yes. Like what? What's remarkable about the masthead, the whole process of mastheading?
Like he compared it to the Egyptians and how the people, like the astronomers, will like stand at the top of the pyramid and like call out to the stars, and it's similar.
Okay, so there's a kind of ancientness to this practice, although the practice that the Egyptians are doing has nothing to do with the whalemen, but he kind of like fictionally ties them together for the purpose, though, as you say, of ennobling the whalemen. Let me ask you this. What else did you find remarkable, Alex Swaim, about this whole process?
They talk about the statues of the, like Napoleon.
Okay, you're not answering my question. You're kind of going with what TK is saying, but do it. That's a good point. What statues are you mentioning? George Washington, Napoleon, and one last guy. Admiral Nelson, right? What do those guys all have in common? Two things. One, no. I mean, yes, but do the masthead first. Like, why are they brought up in the chapter called the masthead?
Because they're, like, overlooking.
Use your words, not your hands. No, yes, you do. You're saying it.
They're, like, tall and overlooking.
Wait, Napoleon's tall? He's famously not tall.
The statues are, like, up, like.
They're, no, you're on, Alex. Where are these statues? Okay, they're on land, but like, what do they look like? If I was going to go to this, I think this one, Napoleon's in Paris, right? What does it look like? Okay, one more time. What does it look like? If I'm standing in front of it, what am I looking at? It's on a tall column, pillar. How about the one of Admiral Nelson? It's in Trafalgar Square. If you've ever seen that little movie, never mind. Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay Lohan is a little girl. Parent Trap. They're in London, and she goes by that Admiral Nelson. And actually, Baltimore came in last night's reading. Did you guys notice that? And have you ever seen that one she's talking about? He's talking about. There's one in one section of Baltimore, which is George Washington on top of a tall pillar. So they're all masthead sitters, right? In a way, just because they're on these tall pillars. But Alex, what's the point? What do these guys all have in common besides the way they appear? Heroic people, right? And, voila, he's doing a little equation here. You see this? So that whole sort of thematic thing that, like, whalemen are noble, is being hit by the allusions to other people who stand on tall pillars. But I guess I also want you to see, like, the thing that they do is actually pretty extraordinary, right? These guys are way up in the air. This is like 70 or 80 feet in the air, right? And how long do they stand up there? Yeah, they're always up there, right? There's somebody, like, during the day, right? There's always someone up there. And I don't know how good you guys are at math. I'm going to give you a little math problem just to think about in your little noggin. So let's say you have a radius of 80 feet, right? And let's say that as you move through the ocean, what is the ship doing? It's rocking, right? It's heaving to and fro. This thing is going to go through, you know, quite a bit of arc here, right? And there's you, right? You're on top of this thing, and you're moving through, I don't know, 50, 40, 50, 60 degrees of arc, like every minute. Wow. Wow. I mean, it's like being at Six Flags all the time. And then furthermore, think about this for a minute. How do you get to the Pacific Ocean from Nantucket? Where do you have to go? Around Cape Horn or Cape Hope. And do you know what that part of the world's like? It's cold. It's really cold. And guess what? They're on top of these things. There's ice all over the lines. I mean, this is pretty extraordinary work they do. And this isn't even whaling, right? This is just like watching for whales. So I hope you guys see that not only are we getting like what they do as a documentary, but like this whole idea of whaling as a noble profession is being underscored all the time by allusion, as Alice brings up, but also just by description of what they do. It's amazing, right? But wait, there's more. There's more, right? Because what this also will do, this is another little technique that these chapters achieve, they will help you understand the plot. Things will happen in the story that if you didn't know about the technical aspect of whaling, you wouldn't understand. Let me give you an example. In chapter 36, what does Ahab do? I'm asking you a question. Here we go. What does he do in chapter 36?
He has them like do the lances, like they
Yeah, before that, just like generally, what does he do? He paces. I guess. Okay. Doesn't he speak to the whole crew? He assembles the whole crew, right? Where is some of the crew? He actually says, "Hey, mastheaders, come down." You guys remember that? Because I want to talk to everyone. Now, you, as a reader, should say, mastheaders come down. What did you just learn in chapter 35? They're always up there. So what does that mean now? This is a big deal. And actually, if you were reading carefully, Starbuck's like, what? Do you remember that? He's like kind of shocked at what's going on. So should you be, because you just read chapter 35. You understand that this is really an anomaly. And you wouldn't have known that were it not for this chapter. You follow me? So the last thing I want to talk about with this chapter, though, is something that only the eagle-eyed reader, I'm not going to write it down here because I want to read it to you. I'll put it down in a second. Only the eagle-eyed reader will catch. And actually, I think only a student of American literature will catch. But I'm hoping that you caught this. So I want you to, and if you didn't, I'm praying that you will right now. So everybody turn to it's the end of the chapter. It's on page 141. Now let me ask you a question. Does Ishmael like sitting at the masthead? Yes, he does. He likes it, especially because you remember, these are South Sea whalemen, so it's fairly pleasant weather for most of the time. Is he good at it?
No.
Why not?
because he kind of like blends into like the sea and like the waves.
Yeah, he gets distracted, he gets all philosophical, he gets lost in thought, and therefore what's he not doing? Looking for whales, right? Like he never sees them. He's talking about a third party, right? He's like, hey, remember this? He says, you owners, Nantucket owners, don't hire these lean-jawed, philosophical-looking Platonists, right? They'd be your worst masthead sitters yet because they get up there and they just get lost in thought, right? Okay, now, I'm going to read something to you. Hold on. Okay, so everybody turn to 141. Why, thou monkey, said a harpooner to one of these lads, the one we've been talking about. We've been cruising now hard upon 3 years, and thou hast not raised a whale yet. Whales are scarce as hen's teeth whenever thou art up there. Now, I'm thinking that's Ishmael being spoken to, probably, right? Whales are scarce as, perhaps they were, or perhaps there might have been shoals of them in the far horizon, but lulled into such an opium-like listlessness of vacant, unconscious reverie is this absent-minded youth by the blending cadence of waves, with thoughts, that at last he loses his identity, takes the mystic ocean at his feet for the visible image of that deep blue bottomless soul pervading mankind and nature, and every half strange, half seen, gliding, beautiful thing that eludes him, every dimly discovered uprising fin of some undiscernible form seems to him the embodiment of those elusive thoughts that only people the soul by continually flitting through it. In this enchanted mood, thy spirit ebbs away to whence it came, becomes diffused through time and space like Cranmer's sprinkled pantheistic ashes, forming at last a part of every shore that gathered the round globe over. There is no life in thee now, except that rocking life imparted by a gentle rolling ship, by her borrowed from the sea, by the sea from the inscrutable tides of God. Does any of this sound familiar to you guys? It should. What does it sound like is happening? Okay, no one can hear you, Luke. I can't hear what he's saying. Can you hear what he's saying?
Something about Emerson.
Ah. Did anybody feel a little Emerson vibe in this?
Yeah.
Do you guys know any Emerson? Can you recite a little bit? Standing on the bare ground, my head bathed by the blithe air and uplifted into infinite space, all mean egotism vanishes. I become a transparent eyeball. I am nothing. I see all. The currents of the universal being circulate through me. I am part or particle of God. Now let me ask you something. Did the language of Emerson there sound like, did you hear that in what he was saying? Right? He says his identity disappears, right? He says that he becomes kind of connected with this larger world spirit. You with me? He's having a transcendental moment. You should be making notes here, right? This is like right out of the essay Nature. Right out of it. Right out of it. Ishmael, a young transcendentalist up there. Lost in thought, lost in the sense of connection of all things. Notice, however, Isaiah, what's the next word? I stopped. What's the next word? But. Okay, let's all look at the big but. You ready for this? But. While this sleep, this dream is on you, move your foot or hand an inch, slip your hold at all, and your identity comes back in horror. Over Descartian vortices you hover, and perhaps at midday in the fairest weather, with one half-throttled shriek, you drop through the transparent air into the summer sea, no more to rise forever. Heed it well, you pantheists. Do you remember what the word pantheist mean? Yeah. A pantheist is essentially what Emerson is, right? Like this belief that God is everything, right? So now notice this. This is like pantheism, right? He believes like everything is divine, right? So look, what I find interesting in this passage, you know, it's supposed to be just like a technical chapter, but suddenly what we really see here, I shouldn't say it's supposed to be, it purports to be just one, but suddenly we see this whole anti-transcendentalism thing coming, right? We see him presenting the experience of Emerson. Now look, is the transcendental experience available apparently?
Yes.
It is, right? Like Ishmael's up there having it, right? Does it sound pleasant?
Yes.
Yeah, does it sound a lot like Emerson's?
Yes.
But, exactly, right. But then he adds this thing that Emerson never added, right? Like, what can happen? Yeah, it can distract you. Thank you, Kara. Oh, you have missed out. It can distract you, right, from the real world, and what can be the result? Yeah, like you can like wake up, and what does he say happens? Your identity comes rushing back to you. Your individuality, this whole sense of loss of ego is a momentary pleasure, but it's not, it's fleeting, and you got to beware of it, right? Beware, ye heath. You know what I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of one day, maybe Thoreau wakes up and he's like, what am I doing out here? I'm 42 years old, and I've got no job and no security. What am I thinking? Get back to the pencil factory. Go, Camden.
Isn't this kind of like in the beginning before
Goodness gracious, Camden, you are red hot today. If you could only remember his name, that would be so beautiful. That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. I never thought about that. Like look, do you guys remember in the first chapter, which Camden just alluded to, Ishmael says this funny thing. He says, you know, water, everyone's drawn to water. Remember this? Like if you go to Manhattan on a weekend, people are like staring out at the water. And why is it? Because water gets you thinking. He says this great line, water and meditation are wedded forever. But then he says, like, it's like that story of Narcissus, right? He sees something in the water and he's fascinated by it. He's lulled into it. But then, of course, he falls in and drowns. Excellent. So this is a really important idea. It's not just about plot or about documentary or about technical details that you need to know about the story, but he also slips in some really important commentary, I think, about what he's in the middle of. That is this Emersonian, Thoreauian transcendentalism. He's saying, like, it's attractive, it's pleasant, but beware, ye pantheists, heed it well. Story of Narcissus, as Camden points out, same story. Awesome. All right, excelente. Now let's do this. Let us all turn to chapter 36. And, you know, I think I say this on a regular basis, but I really mean it this time. This is probably one of the most important chapters of all. Okay? Huge. It's really important. It's called what? The quarterdeck. Now, I want to draw you guys a little picture real quickly. This is like a cutaway view of a ship. I don't know how. So let's say this is a whale ship, right? Something like this. That's the bow. Okay, these are the masts, right? You with me? Hello? Yes, and if you're sitting on a masthead, you're up here. This is the water. Okay, big rudder, tiller up here. So the thing you need to know is, I like the way that Luke is drawing, by the way. This is called the quarterdeck right here. All right? And this is where what they call conning the ship or steering the ship. You do it up there. But the thing you should know is this is kind of a privileged place, this raised deck back here. The only people who are kind of even allowed up there are the officers and the guy who's steering and the captain. It's kind of like their special, the captain in particular. It's his special place. And as the chapter begins, Mikey said this, what's Ahab doing up there? No, first. He's just pacing. Remember he said like a gentleman would walk in his garden after breakfast, so Ahab is pacing the quarterdeck. That's his special place. This is part of what makes this chapter so strange, is what does he do? He calls everyone on the quarterdeck, right? But I want you to notice the fact that this is raised, and I'm gonna get back to this in a minute. It's a raised deck, okay? Just keep that in your thinking cap, okay? So if I have to put it in a nutshell, let's do this. Let's just rehearse this for a minute, okay? So Ahab comes out, and everyone's looking at him. They can see like something is on his mind, right? Like he's about to. Remember, Stubbs talks about him as like a chick, like something's about to hatch, right? And everyone's sort of nervous, and then he calls everyone down, and then he starts this kind of weird like pep rally, doesn't he? Essentially, did you notice that? He's like, what do you do when you see a whale? Remember that? And they're like, ah! And he's like, and then what do you do? Lower and away. What do you sing? A dead whale or a stove boat? And everyone's getting kind of like, woo, this is fun, right? Like we're just cheering for what we're about to do. But they're also kind of confused. Like, what's going on here? This is kind of odd, right? And then suddenly the subject shifts to what? Oh, no, not yet. A white whale. Remember this? There's this white whale I've talked to you some about. And here's this coin. And whoever finds that whale and raises me that whale, sees it first, that guy's going to get this gold coin. And remember, he nails it to the mast so everyone can see it, yes? And then, remember, the harpooneers are looking funny, right? They're like, what are they thinking about? They've seen this white whale. They've the crooked jaw. Remember what it's got? It's got a crooked jaw. It's got a weird wrinkled brow. It dives in a funny way. It fantails, whatever that means when it dives. It's got all these corkscrewy harpoon. You've seen him, Moby Dick. And then remember, Starbucks is like, is that the whale that took your leg? Yes. And then we learn, like, oh, this is why we're here, right? We're going after that whale. That's the whale. That's why you've signed. And then the men, what's their response?
Yeah.
What are they? Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah, they're all for this. This sounds awesome to them, right? They're loving this. And then Starbuck. He looks and he sees one apart who doesn't like what he's listening to, right? Okay, and then comes the most important part of the chapter. And by the way, I got some good news for you guys. A memorization coming.
Yay!
That's right, Luke. I'm going to put it online, but it's the speech he gives. Remember, he says, "Thou requirest the little lower layer." Remember that? Hark ye yet again, the little lower layer. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The little lower layer. That's a very important phrase for this whole book. The little lower layer. And frankly, the upshot of the little lower layer is this. And listen, this is the big takeaway for the week. If you don't learn this right this instant, then you're missing something. It goes like this. Moby Dick. I'm putting it in quotes. What does that mean? The book is not about a whale. All right. Most people who read this book, most people who know about the book, don't know that. And if you've read chapter 36 and studied it, you must know this. Ahab says as plain as day to Starbuck, he's not hunting Moby Dick. Are you confused? Yeah. Okay, fine. That's fine. You can be confused for about 5 more minutes, but then we're going to clarify this. We're going to read what he says. Well, let's read his words first and see what he says. But listen, here's the first thing I want you to think about this. Now, remember we talked about 2 different kinds of readers? What are they? Superficial page turner and the eagle-eyed reader. Now, think about this for a minute. This chapter, we have those 2 readers. Who are the superficial page turners who are satisfied with a simple explanation, like to be excited? The crew, right? They hear, what's the motive? Vengeance. They're on board, right? That's enough for them. They're good, and they're drinking away and hooting and hollering, right? They're dancing, and I'm gonna write myself a note. Okay, but not everybody, right? Starbuck is not satisfied. He is what? He's our eagle-eyed reader. He says this funny thing. He says, vengeance? Vengeance on a dumb brute that smote thee from blindest instinct seems madness. It's blasphemous. Remember that? Now, do you understand what he means by this or not? Like, can you picture this? Like, imagine you're driving down Folly Quarter Road, right? And a deer jumps out in front of your car, right? And he smashes your car, and you have an accident, and your car is totaled, right? And you're so mad because you loved your car. And then now your life is dedicated to finding that deer. You're going to find that deer, and you're going to kill that deer. That's your goal. And let's say Emma Conger told you such a thing. Like, what would you say about her plan? Yeah, but what makes it strange?
No, because the deer was probably hurt in the collision, so...
Don't add to my story. The deer's fine, okay? It's a big, strong deer. Shh, Emma Conger, don't do this. What's the point? No, that's not the point. The point I'm getting at is, Miles, what would you say to someone who said, like, I am dedicated to killing that deer that ruined my car? Yeah, but why? What's wrong with the plan?
Because there's so many deer.
No, that's not my point. What's wrong with, like, the essential motive? It's just an animal. It didn't do it on purpose. It didn't mean to wreck your car. It was an accident, right? Like, what are you doing? This doesn't make sense, right? It's just like in your head. You following me? That's, I think, what Starbuck's getting at, and it's a perfectly reasonable response, don't you think? And then Ahab has something to tell him, right? He says, look, thou requirest the little lower layer. What's he basically saying? Put it in your own words. Thou requirest the little lower layer.
Maybe like emotion.
No. Look, like, he's implying something about the crew. What did he tell the crew?
He wanted revenge on him.
Just revenge. But what's he implying about what he told the crew? It's not the real story, right? He's like, thou requirest the little lower. He says, hark ye, yet again, thou requirest the little lower layer. So one of the things, I don't know if you understood this in the chapter, but they're talking alone. Did you guys understand this? They kind of remove themselves from the crew, right? It would not do for Starbuck, who's a good, solid first mate, to question the captain's plans in front of everyone, right? On like the first days. And if you really, really carefully, it's plain because Ahab is pointing to the men. At one point he says, look at them, look at Stub, right? They're far from them. They're on the other side of the deck perhaps, right? They're talking mano a mano. You with me? But let's look at what he says. It's very strange. And this is the part, Isaiah, you're going to memorize. So you want to pay close attention to every word. Okay, so everyone turn to page 145. This is crucial. This is, I think, like if you don't get this, you don't get the whole book. Okay? Hark ye yet again, the little lower layer. All visible objects, man, are as but pasteboard masks. Nick, are you here? 145, middle of the page. All visible objects, man, are as but pasteboard masks. Now, let's stop there for a minute. Do you guys understand what he means by pasteboard masks?
No.
Well, you know what a mask is, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think pasteboard would be?
Oh, like it's water, like cardboard?
Yeah, like for us it would be like cardboard or like paper mache or something like that, right? Are you following me? Like a mask that you would wear where? Where would you wear such a mask?
Masquerade.
At a masquerade. A mask at a masquerade at a party, yeah. Or on like a theater, a stage, right? You with me? Okay. So, he says, all visible objects, man, are as but pasteboard masks. But in each event, in the living act, the undoubted deed, there some unknown but still reasoning thing puts forth the molding of its features from behind the unreasoning mask. If a man will strike through the mask. How can the prisoner reach outside except by thrusting through the wall? To me, the white whale is the wall shoved near to me. Sometimes I think there's naught beyond. But 'tis enough. He tasks me, he heaps me. I see in him outrageous strength with an inscrutable malice sinnowing it. And be the white whale agent or be the white whale principal, I will wreak that hate upon him. I'm sorry, I missed a line. I see in him outrageous strength with an inscrutable malice sinnowing it. That inscrutable thing is chiefly what I hate. And be the white whale agent or be the white whale principal, I will wreak that hate upon him. Talk not to me of blasphemy, man. I'd strike the son of it insulted me. All right, let's stop there for a minute. So, Luke, more?
Was that the part we memorized?
Yes. Now, all right, we must understand this together. So let's get going. Go ahead, Kara.
When he says, if man will strike through the mask, does that mean he'll, like when, that basically is taking off his mask? Not actually doing actual mask.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you're right. Like, he wants to get at what? What does he want to get at? What's behind the mask, right? And he can't, I guess he can't take it off, so what's he going to do? Strike through it, right? So listen, now, you have to forgive me. You have to forgive me. I'm not much of an artist. So here we go. All right, let's do this. Here is a mask, all right? Here's a mask, pasteboard mask. What does he say this mask is? You got the first line. First line. All visible, everything you can see in the world, yes? All events, all deeds, yes? So this is all visible objects. And obviously, let me ask you something simple. What's included in all visible objects? The whale. You right? Moby Dick is a visible object. All visible objects, man, are as but pasteboard masks. But in the act, in the deed, there, what does he say? Some unknown, you got to follow along with me, some unknown but still what? Reasoning thing puts forth its features, right? It's the moldings of its features from behind the mask. So what's back here?
The actual.
Yeah, the whatever it is, right? Again, forgive me, please. He's got hair and a beard, I guess. Oh, he's evil looking, right? Got a big ear. All right, look. What is the difference between this thing and this thing?
That's like the true, but more actual.
This is the true, the actual. He calls this, it's a reasoning thing, yes? Right? This thing has reason whether or not this does. Right? And if you want to get at this principle, the thing that, I guess, is behind every act or deed or visible object, what do you have to do? You have to get through the mask somehow. And what does he say for him is this mask? Or he uses another metaphor, which is a wall, right? What is the wall? The whale. The whale is the mask. The whale is a wall. And by striking through the whale or hunting the whale, what is he in fact trying to get to? Yeah, the truth of what?
Like what his vengeance is.
Okay, maybe the true author of these events or the meaning behind them or who knows what exactly. But my point is, I want you to at least take away, if not this image here, what this image is supposed to represent. What Ahab tells Starbuck this whole thing is really about, right? It's not about something in the visible world like a whale, like Moby Dick even. It's the thing behind him. It's the thing that's driving it all. Yes? Now, let me ask you something. Did any of you guys notice something odd about this chapter? Just little odd things appeared. You say like, what is that? Emma, you kind of, I think, were alluding to it a second ago. Yeah. Look at the first part of the chapter. There's the title.
Captain Ahab enters.
Okay, it says Ahab enters. Did you guys see this?
Yeah.
Did you notice a couple times it said aside?
Yeah.
What are those things called? Stage directions, right? If you were paying close attention, you would notice that this chapter suddenly has stage directions. Very odd, don't you think, in a novel? And then I want to show you something. There was earlier in, there was another chapter that we didn't read. It says, enter Ahab, then stub. Same thing, right? There's more stage directions. And I want you to just skip ahead a minute. I'm not going to have you read this chapter, but turn to page 153 and just kind of skim chapter 40 for a minute. And what do you notice? Look, everyone. What are you seeing?
It is a play.
It is a play, right? It's no longer a narrated novel. It is now a play. The book suddenly transforms in chapter 40 to a full-fledged play. With, what does that thing look like that you're reading there? What is that? What do you call that? A script, yeah. 40 suddenly becomes a script. Now look back to my, what does this thing look like suddenly? If you're down here. Yeah, it's all happening on a stage. Are you following me? So we have suddenly stage directions. The book slowly, and over the course of a couple chapters, becoming a full-fledged play. It's on top of a stage. And if anyone of you guys paying attention, from chapter 1, yeah, go, Brendan.
They first describe fate as the play.
The stage mishap.
Do you guys remember this?
Yeah.
In the very first chapter, he says, oh, part of my going to sea was part of a grand program that the stage manager's fate put on. So when we see all these kind of play-like theatrical things, we should be saying ooh, this is already a thematic motif of the whole idea of fate, right? And now listen, do you guys see this? Can you see that there may be some kind of connection between the presence of fate, the presence of theater imagery, and also this speech? I mean, look, if there is such a thing as fate, what does that mean about the future? It's predetermined. And if things are predetermined, that's a passive verb, who's doing the predetermining? Are you with me? Like the fates, some higher power, just the organization of the universe, or maybe things are set because we're all sort of machines and we have no free will and we can only do what we can do. Are you with me? So I hope you guys are seeing what I'm getting at here, right? Is that Ahab is arguing about this kind of thing. He's vexed by this, yes? What is the thing he says he hates most? Answer me correctly. You have to look at the page. What does he say? It's this thing, he says, that I hate most. It's not the whale. What does he say? He says, this is what I chiefly hate. You got to pronounce it properly. What is it? It's what? The inscrutable thing. Well, first he says, it has an inscrutable malice sinnowing it, and then he says, and that is chiefly what I hate. the inscrutable thing. Now let's make sure, this is a really important word for this whole book. Do you guys know what that word means? Inscrutable? Yeah. You don't. What is it? I bet you do. Watch this. What does scrutinize mean? Or scrutiny? It's like, oh, I don't like to be under your scrutiny. What does that mean? Like examined or studied, right? So what does it mean if something is inscrutable? It cannot be understood. It cannot be clearly examined. You with me? And what does Ahab say about that?
That's what's behind the mask.
Well, it's, yeah, and that's most importantly, that's the thing that he can't bear. Right? It's unbearable to him that there's something there that he wants to know and can't know it, right? Now, this is kind of interesting, right? Because, of course, then what is this hunt a hunt for? Yeah, like it's about knowledge. Are you following me? That's what he wants. He wants to know something. It's not so much he wants to kill this whale. Oh, that's what he told the crew. And if you're a dummy like them, if you're just a superficial reader like old Queequeg who just counts 50 pages at a time and turns the page, right? Then you're satisfied. You're like, woo, let's drink some grog, right? But not old Starbuck, right? He's on to him. And Ahab tells him, like, this is what we're here for. Yeah, go ahead.
So what is Ahab trying to get from killing the whale?
That.
How?
I don't know. I haven't read this yet. We'll have to find out. I'm not sure. But at least we know that's what is on his mind, yes? Now look, when he gets this news, what is Starbuck's response to this little revelation? Can you do better than that? What do you mean he doesn't like it?
Does he like cast down his eyes or something?
Yes, he does. And he's like, oh, God, help us. What does that suggest he thinks about this little piece of news? Yeah, it's like, this is crazy. This is like a kind of a mad quest we're on right now, right? And, oh, help us, right? God, help us. This is wild. And meanwhile, Ahab's whipping up the crew, right? He's whipping up his officers, up the harpooneers. What is it? Did you understand that little curious ritual he has them do with their harpoons? Or not? Well, at one point he has them cross it, and then he does this crazy thing, right, where crazy, it's kind of cool. We should do that one time. We all cross our harpoons, and remember Ahab, he holds the axis, and he tries to kind of electrify them with his own power, right? He's like, ah. All right? And then he says, like, it didn't work, but that's okay because I would have killed you all with my energy, right? And then he does this thing with his harpoon. He has them undo the wooden, the long kind of spear-like thing, and then he has them tip them up. And what do they basically now have? Yeah, they have cups. The sockets make a cup. And he pours into those. Now, I want you to think about this a minute. This is not something that, again, you should be tuned in here. They're ritually drinking alcohol out of cups. Ahab holds an object that's round in front of them. What does this whole thing smack of? Yeah, like the Eucharist. You guys know what I'm talking about? Hello or not? No. Holy Communion. You know, in Catholic Church, you have Holy Communion. Yes? But, of course, it's all sort of inverted because what does he say about the drink? He's like, drink it up, boys. It's hot as Satan's hooves. Right? Yeah. It forks, it spiralizes, right? This is like a kind of unholy communion he's got these guys into. All right. So, tonight, listen, you know what's cool about tonight?
What?
Wait, what did I assign you guys? This is incorrect. That's not right. You guys, I was forgetting who you people were. Like, you haven't read 37 and 38 yet. Okay, scratch that. That was for period 7. Listen carefully. Here's all you have to read. All right, ready for this? So go back to your assignment book. You need to read 37, 38, and 41. Okay? 37, 38, and 41. And here's what's cool about those chapters. They're basically, 37 and 38 is going to be Ahab alone. Tomorrow, you ready for this? If you're in college prep, 43, 44, 47. If you're in honors, 42, 43, 44, 47. Okay? And we'll have a quiz. And I'll try. I think I'm going to put up some little optional guided reading questions for you guys. Are those useful or not? What?
You don't have this class tomorrow.
And we don't have school on Monday. Yeah.
What?
Oh no.
All right, I have to regroup. I'm sorry. It might be a little longer. I'm sorry to tell you. Okay, so put this down here. Put those chapters and see the website, because there's definitely going to be guided reading questions if we're going to miss that much school. We got to keep cracking. We got to crack on, as they say.
You're going to have GRQ?
Yes. Okay. Now, let's do what we often try to do first, and that is to review. All right, you ready? So really quickly, let's do this. Are you guys taking your books out and taking your notebooks out and having all your affairs in front of you? Thank you. All right. So yesterday, we talked about 2 chapters, right? 35, 36. Hello? The masthead and the quarterdeck. And I'll just quickly, let's do this quickly. The masthead's important because, one, we have these technical chapters that teach us about the way things work on whale ships, right? But it also underscores this thematic thing, which is that whalemen are amazing, right? They do these amazing things, and that you can actually connect them to amazing people like Egyptians or Napoleon or Washington or Nelson. They're like them, right? Because they're all pole sitters, yes? And then finally, or not finally, we have 2 more. One is, the next one is that we had this little anti-transcendental thing going on, right? Where we have Ishmael going into a transcendental state, but then he warns us that it's deadly, possibly, right? That it's not like Emerson fully explained, or Emerson didn't fully explain, that this is a dream, kind of, right? It's pleasant, it's desirable, but that if you lose your grip, you're done for, right? And then finally, we talked about the fact that sometimes the plot is aided by these technical chapters, because when something happens later, we say to ourselves, like, oh, of course, we were told in chapter 35 that if everyone comes down from the masthead, that's very unusual, right? And that's exactly what happens in chapter 36. All right, now, if you remember chapter 36, this is it here, yes? Right? Yes, huge, important, eagle eyes, right? If you don't know what this means, then you are lost. Now, how about this one over here? This picture. Does that right? Don't laugh, Dan Chalk. What does that mean? Yeah, the whale and all visible objects are just pasteboard masks. And what is Ahab really after? Yeah, the thing behind, which he says it's that inscrutable thing that he hates most and that he's determined to get at, right? So it's really, in the end, not for the whale that he's in pursuit, but it's for some kind of knowledge or understanding. And who on the ship knows this? Starbuck, right? Starbuck. And as, gives snaps to Su Young that later, eventually, okay, also Ishmael, right? Like he seems to either figure it out or been told or something, right? Good? Check? All right, let's jump into the next chapters. 37. So today, we're doing 37, 38, and 41, right? And I want to help pilot you guys through these chapters to highlight some of the key things here. So the first, did you guys do questions for today?
Yeah.
Can you just take them out? I think I asked you this question, and I think I want to start here. Let's start here. And that is, did it occur to any of you to think about the narrator here? In 37 and 38.
How he knew what they were thinking.
Yeah, somebody just state, what's the problem?
How could Ishmael,
Speak up.
how could Ishmael really know that Ahab is saying all this when it says that he's alone and kind of talking to himself?
And the same is the case for the next chapter too, right? Starbucks. So exactly, that's okay. Everybody agree with that? This is how is this possible? We have a narrator who identified himself right in the beginning of the book, and now we're in a room alone with the captain, and he seems to know everything he's saying. Discuss.
He's embellishing, probably, like he said he might with some characters.
So explain it.
He's making up this soliloquy in order to show what he believes Ahab was thinking at the time. And we'll go into his
All right, I like that possibility. Like this is Ishmael's just best sort of literary guess at what was going down below decks. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. How about some more? So that's back to chapter 26 where he told us, I'm going to weave tragic graces around these guys. And let me ask you something. What does Ahab talk like? Will Solomon?
Kind of like he's mad and crazy.
Yeah, but like the level of his speech, I mean. Do you guys understand what I'm asking you? I mean, is Ahab a crude speaker, or is he poetic and theatrical? How would you characterize the way he talks?
Pretty poetic.
Yeah, it's pretty philosophical, poetic, pretty grand, right? The way he talks, right? So, all right, that's it. Do we have any other theories here?
Possibly Ishmael could have snuck into the captain's quarters.
Okay.
He does seem to be drawn to various things.
Yes.
Simple, so.
He's a pretty curious fellow, isn't he? So, all right, his theory number 2 is that Ishmael's in the room somewhere.
Maybe Melville's switched off to Ahab today's chapter.
Which is not... Okay, so explain that. What do you mean?
Maybe it's not, because earlier it was with the the play, so maybe he's kind of doing something different here where Ishmael's not even there.
That's what I was thinking as well.
Yeah, flesh it out a little bit more. That's really interesting. So there's another possibility altogether. Go ahead.
It's a digression from the story. It's just not even. Now it's just Ahab's the one telling the story as opposed to Ishmael.
Okay, so the Moby Dick as we knew it for the first, 35 or 36 chapters doesn't exist for a moment, right? And you could easily argue that might be true because look how chapter 41 begins. What does he do?
Talks about how he was one of the masses.
Yeah, he says like, I, Ishmael, which implies like he's been gone for a little while. You know what I mean? Like it almost sounds like the narrative like stops. It becomes a play, and no one narrates a play, right? It's just like each character has his own line in the script. So look, the point you should be thinking to yourself is like, this is weird, one, it's unusual, it's strange. But don't forget that thematic thing, right? The thematic thing about plays, theater, and fate, right? So that's important. All right, that's very good, awesome. So let's keep these theories in mind as we move forward. So I want to read a little bit. You know, this is one of the things I want to do as we go along. It's a long book, but I want to highlight some things. What did Ishmael say Ahab looked like the first time he saw him? What did he see in his face?
Madness almost.
The first time, the chapter called Ahab, when he comes on deck, he said he looked like Percy. Yeah, but he had something in his face. It's page 109.
That scar that went down his
Yeah, but no, an expression. Can you look at page 109? This is on the right-hand side, I think. All right, on 109.
The posture he maintained.
Yeah, on the end of that second big paragraph, it says the following. And not only that, but moody, stricken Ahab stood before them with a crucifixion in his face, in all the nameless, regal, overbearing dignity of some mighty woe. Right? So who's he comparing him to? Yeah, it's like the pain that he's suffering is a kind of epic pain, right? On the level of one of the great stories of time, right? The crucifixion of Jesus. And of course, what is Jesus suffering for? It's a kind of it's for others, right? So this is interesting that he puts that word into describing Ahab's initial face when he first sees it. Now go to what we just read. What does Ahab say here? He says the funniest thing. He's like, oh, my head. My head. What's he feeling on his head? Well, he doesn't say it that. He calls it what? He says, I feel this crown on my head, and it's made of jagged iron. And he calls it a certain crown. Remember what it was? The crown of Lombardy. And did anybody go look that up?
Wasn't it something they put on, like these crown the Romans?
Yes.
Like a nail from Jesus' cross.
Aha. Wait. It's an iron crown for kings, right? So Ahab is like regal in some way, but it's biting into his head. It's crushing his skull, right? Which sounds like the crown of thorns, right? And then we find out that the crown of Lombardy, which obviously is not actually on his head, but he feels it, it's weighty, is partly made from one of the nails of Christ, right? So there's all this stuff kind of oddly in the air, right? Like he's being compared in curious ways to Christ here. So that's something that you should have paid attention to. Now, a couple other things here, though. He says something very interesting. He says this. You know, he's talking about the day, and he highlights this, the way he's feeling. And then he talks about what just happened. He's like, oh, it wasn't as hard as I thought, right? I knew there'd be some trouble, but there was only one that resisted me, and I think I've got him, right? So I want to read this part with you. It's really important. Page 149, okay? He says the following. He says, it's about a third of the way down. He says, what I've dared, I've willed. Are you with me? And what I've willed, I'll do. They think me mad. Starbuck does. But I'm demoniac. I'm madness maddened. Now let's talk about that for a minute.
Starbuck also noticed this because at the first part, next chapter, he said that he need to follow Ahab even though he don't want to.
Yes, he does say that. But I think that's because he's in awe of Ahab. But let me ask you, what do you make of that phrase, I'm madness maddened? What do you, I mean, it's first of all, it's a kind of oxymoron, right? Or it's just strange. But what do you think, Chile?
I was thinking, like, because he talked about how Starbuck thinks he's crazy. So, like, if they think I'm crazy, they haven't really seen anything yet because I'm much worse than they can imagine.
I mean, is that what it means? It's just like, here's crazy, and I'm like, crazy, crazy.
Yes.
Like, I like the way Chile said it. They haven't seen anything yet. And it's not just any old kind of crazy. What does he say he is before he's madness maddened? He's demoniac. Like he's... Now, listen, you should not have missed this. On the one hand, Ishmael says, oh, the guy has a crucifixion in his face. On the one hand, he says, oh, I have a crown on my head. And now what is he saying? Yeah, he's like satanic, he's essentially saying, right? And mad. So one of the takeaways from this chapter, of course, for you to see, is, besides the weird narrative of Ishmael, is that Ahab is this very contrasting character. And, of course, where do we first hear that? Where do we first hear that he's like both of these strange, opposite things? Yeah, who said that? Yeah, Peleg says he's an ungodly but godlike man simultaneously, right? And he's actually saying sort of similar things himself. Now, let's just read I don't know if I asked you this question. Did I ask you, like, who's he talking to at the end of this chapter? Because at first, I think Ned is right. He's just talking to himself. It's a soliloquy. But then you'll see he starts using second-person pronouns, ye. He's addressing someone. So I want to read you this part, and you tell me, who's he addressing, and what's he trying to get at? So just after what we read, he says the following. The prophecy was that I should be dismembered, and I lost this leg. I now prophesy that I will dismember my dismemberer. Now, then, be the prophet and the fulfiller one. That's more than ye, you great gods, ever were. I laugh and hoot at ye, you cricket players, you pugilists, you deaf Burks and blind bindigos. I will not say, as schoolboys do to bullies, take someone of your own size, don't pummel me. No, you've knocked me down, and I'm up again. But ye have run and hidden. Come forth from behind your cotton bags. I've no long gun to reach you. Come, Ahab compliments to you. Come and see if you can swerve me. Swerve me? You can't swerve me, else you swerve yourselves. Man has you there. Swerve me. The path to my fixed purpose is laid with iron rails whereon my soul is grooved to run. Over sounded gorges, through rifled hearts of mountains, under torrents, beds unerringly I rush. Naught's an obstacle, naught's an angle to that iron way. Now, who's he talking to? No. He says, you gods, right? Like, where are they hidden behind? What are cotton bags? Come on, use your imagination. The clouds. He's like, come on out. What is he inviting them to do? No, he's like, come on out. He's taunting them, right? He's like, come on, I'll fight you. So this is important. You see, like, he is, this goes back here, right? Of course, like this guy is actually shouting at the gods. He's raising his fists, right? He's shaking his fists at the gods. And what is he daring them to do? What does he mean? What does he mean by swerve? Swerve me. You can't swerve me.
Try and stop it.
Try to stop me. Try to change me. It's not possible, right? So let me ask you something here. When it comes down to freedom of choice, where's Ahab coming down at this moment? Who controls him? He does, right? He is all will, right? He is what I've dared, I've willed, and what I've willed, I'll do, right? He is in charge. You with me? At this moment, right? So make a note of that because this is going to be kind of an ongoing dialectic about to what extent you can control anything, right? And at this moment, he's like, I'm in charge. Try to change me, God. You can't do it, right? He's defying the divine, which again is kind of odd in this whole mix of him being at sometimes demoniac and then at sometimes Christ-like, okay? Thoughts, feelings? How are you feeling about Ahab right now? I'm just curious. What do you think of this guy?
My favorite character.
Okay, you like him. All right, fair enough. What do you like about him?
He's like so strange and contradicting. It makes him more interesting.
Okay, yeah, he's certainly an interesting guy.
No idea like where he's gonna like how he's gonna end up in the end or like what's gonna happen to him.
Yeah, there's nothing predictable about this man, right? He is all over the map. Okay, good. What else?
It's pretty cool.
He's cool. All right.
Cool.
Su Young.
I still questionable the old man said Ahab will like Ishmael.
What?
I think once that old man said, or stranger said, Ahab will like Ishmael's characteristics, but I still don't know why it is.
Oh, right. Remember that Peleg said, oh, you'll like him well enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Well, we like him. I like him. It's Will Solomon?
I think he's absolutely crazy. I like him more.
All right, good, awesome. Now, there's a couple things. So the next, so Starbuck's shaking in his boots, right? Then he's like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into, right? But there's a few things I want to point out in this chapter, the next one, and that is the next one, 38. Okay. This is very interesting. He says, I see his impious end. All right, what does it mean? His unholy, what does end mean? No, I don't think that means, no, not demise. End. If I say, to what end are you coming to see me?
Like to what extent?
No, not to what extent. For what purpose? Yeah. So what does he mean when he says, I see his impious end?
What's driving that?
Yeah, I know what his terrible, mean goal, purpose is. It's bad, right? I see it. But then what does he say? I'm stuck. I'm going to help him. Yeah, I don't want to. But the guy is like, I mean, you'll see, he's compared to a lot of things. Ahab himself compares himself to a wheel with cogs. Remember that? I turn and they have to turn, right? Or he says like he's like a little match and they're a bunch of little, ant hills of powder. They're going to blow up around me. So he's got some kind of power over them. And Starbuck knows it. And he is, he's distressed at his sort of, I mean, this is interesting, right? Like Ahab is all will and all control. And what is Starbuck?
He's just like all whatever. He's like being told to do. He can't.
Yeah, he's passive. He's a pawn, right? And he knows it, and he hates it, but he knows it. But despite all that, here's a curious thing he says. Here's another interesting thing. Again, if you turn to the next page, he says a curious thing. So on the one hand, he says, like, I'm forced to do this. But then what does he say his feeling about Ahab is? He feels pity for him. What does he pity about Ahab? Yeah, it's that woe. All of this crazy quest that he's announced is really it's originating with this sense of woe and pain he has. Right? He says this great line. I love this. He says, this is on page 150. Turn to page 150, please. Rachel, thank you. Okay, he says the following. Oh, I plainly see my miserable office. You know what that means? It means like my duty, the thing I tune in. To obey, rebelling, and worse yet, to hate with touch of pity. For in his eyes I read some lurid woe, would shrivel me up had I it. Now let me ask you something. who's the older of the two? Yeah, Ahab by far. I think he's like 20 years older than him, right? And yet, what's he saying? If I had the burden that that guy has, it would destroy me. I couldn't carry it. He's got something. He's got some woe or burden that he's carrying that's like ennobling, right? Like it's amazing that he can still carry on. So he understands that it's not just like he's a stark raving lunatic. He's got something that's distressing him. He says it is a real motive, even if it's a dangerous one. Okay. And what's interesting too, you should make a note of this is, so what is? I mean, think of it. It's all about the hands, right? This is Ahab's hand to God, right? Fist shaking. And this is Starbucks. He's like, oh, God, preserve us, right? He's in prayer. So their relationship to the divine is utterly opposite, at least at this moment, right? Defiant, pleading, right? These two men who are strangely wedded, right? They are, they're inseparable, at least at this point, okay? Now, I didn't ask you to read these parts, but I want to highlight a couple things. 39 is interesting because did anybody bother reading 39? So now we get to see Stubb. What's his response to it all? Whatever. What he says, you know what? He's not oblivious. He sees what's going on, but he says, you know what? The best response to all this stuff is it's just a laugh. Just laugh at it, and he sings a song. Right? So there's Stubb, and we know that about him. We've been told he's sort of this easygoing character that takes everything with a laugh, and then of course all the hands. In this very script-like scene in chapter 40, they dance on the forecastle and have a little jig. Would you like a chair?
Sure.
You can be front and center. We're on film. Quick, Debo, hurry. Okay. I won't say any more about that, but just I think this goes to what Sahil and Chile were pointing out. 40, sort of the curtain drops and we're back into a novel. You guys see that? So we're back into a novel. This is a very curious little move on Melville's part. It's kind of interesting. Okay, now, this was a tricky chapter, right? This is pretty abstract and complicated. It's called Moby Dick, and so we learn some of the backstory of Moby Dick. We learn some of the rumors about him, and I want to rehearse those with you so we can make sure we're all on the same pahina. But there's also some things about Ahab that I want to make sure we highlight here. So what are the things that we learn about Moby Dick? Let's make sure we all have got them. And I don't even learn, because we don't see him, but like learn that other people believe about him. He's immortal. You can't kill him. And in fact, if you got your harpoons into him and he spit blood, he'd just appear somewhere else, right? Or what else? He's ubiquitous. What does that mean? Yeah, he can be more than one place at a time, right? All right, good. Yeah, he craves human blood, right? Yeah, that's awesome. What else?
Like that natural terror that they talked about like when he like goes to run away, but then he turns around and comes back.
Yeah, he's not okay. Listen, what Will said is in direct contrast to what Starbuck said yesterday. What did Starbuck say? He says, "Vengeance on a dumb brute that smote thee from blind instinct." You remember that? And then the rumor is he's no dumb brute. He doesn't work out of blind instinct. He'll run away and then he'll turn around and smash a ship. Right? He's very canny and cagey, and he's got this intelligent malignancy. Remember that? So that's another one of his rumors. He's not just some dumb brute. All right, what else?
That like other fish, when they see him or whatever, that they just they dash themselves against the rocks with such violence to cause instant death.
Instant death. Yeah, he strikes terror all around him. That's awesome. What about his size? Yeah, he's massive. He's giant. He's got this strange. Do you remember what it's called? Its shape on his back. Pyramidical. That's good, Leeway. Right. He's got this pyramidical hump. What about his jaw? It's crooked. And if you remember that picture from me under the jaw, it's not up there now. Don't look. Their underjaw is actually very narrow at the end, and you can see this sometimes in real stories. I don't know if you guys know this. Do you know what sperm whale eat?
Giant squid.
That's.
Good job, Ned.
How do you guys know that? You have friends who are sperm whales? That's true. They eat giant squid, and actually, apparently, when you catch it or you see a sperm whale, sometimes they'll have these giant. they'll have these giant dinner plate size bruises and whatnot on them because, you know, giant squids have these like tentacles that are like 20 feet long with these suckers that are this big, and they wrestle down half a mile below the ocean surface, right? But they eat these things, and sometimes their jaws get either dislocated or broken because of these giant tussles, okay? So his is twisted, right? What about it? Do we say this about his brow? It's emphasized. He's got a wrinkled brow instead of a flat, you know, sperm whale forehead. His is all convoluted, okay? And we learned this from yesterday. He's got harpoons sticking out of him, right? And he has certain strange habits. What a beast, right? Almost like mythic. Crazy. Now, let's look at the way that Ahab regards this guy, okay? So this is really important. So we learned all this strange rumors about him, but what I want to focus on now is on page 164, okay? 164, turn there, please. And what we see here, this is kind of cool the way he does this. He just introduces a scene, doesn't introduce who it was, right? You don't know. It's like some guy in the water, right? Remember that? And then later on it's like, that was Ahab. So read with me on 164. It's the third paragraph. His 3 boats stove around him, and oars and men both whirling in the eddies. One captain, seizing the line knife from his broken prow. So I don't know if you guys understand this. I show you a little picture here. You'll learn more about this soon. We're about to read a chapter called The First Lowering. It's chapter 48. That's the first time we're actually going to hunt a whale. And so look at your cover for a minute. I want to show you something, and this will make more sense of what we're reading. So you have to look on, Anthony. So you see in the distance on the left-hand side, there's a ship with sails in it, on it. That's like the Pequod, all right? But then if you see right under the whale's tail is a boat. So there's a ship, Pequod, then there's boats. And you don't hunt whales from ships. You hunt them on boats. You lower the boats, and then you chase the whale. And so this little scene that we're reading is going to be like on one of those little boats, okay? So clearly what happened, this whale capsized one of those boats. So let's read this. It says the following. Okay, seizing the line knife from his broken prow, that is from the front of the boat, he had dashed at the whale as an Arkansas duelist at his foe, blindly seeking with a 6-inch blade to reach the fathom-deep life of the whale. That captain was Ahab. Now, hold on a second. Do you guys know how big a fathom is? No. No, a fathom is 6 feet, okay? So think about this for a minute. He's got a 6-inch knife, and he's in the ocean with the whale, right? And he's trying to stab it with a knife. And what does he mean by the fathom deep life? Like, what's the life? Where's your life? Yeah, your heart. So, you know, the whale's heart is like 6 feet in. So you can't really do a whole, I mean, the blubber on a whale is like 18 inches thick. You're not going to get very far. But what does this say about Ahab? This guy's unbelievably intrepid, right? He's in the water with the whale, and he's attacking it with a knife. Like he's in a duel with another guy. Anthony, that's amazing.
It is.
Yes. All right, now, but let's move on, because, of course, then he gets his leg removed from him like it's with a sickle, remember that, or a scythe. But I want to read this part with you at the end of this paragraph, because then what Ishmael does is says, like, okay, and then this is what happened in Ahab's brain. Okay, so read with me here. Okay, he says the following. Okay. Go down about halfway in that paragraph on page 164, where it says, the white whale swam before him. Can you find that? Are you there? You got it? The white whale? All right, the white whale swam before him. Now, remember, he's not in the water anymore. He's now in a bed or in a hammock somewhere. But the white whale's in his swimming in his imagination. The white whale swam before him as the monomaniac incarnation of all those malicious agencies which some deep men feel eating in them till they are left living on with half a heart and half a lung. The intangible malignity which has been from the beginning. When is the beginning, by the way? Yeah, like in the beginning, right? And where was that evil in the beginning? The serpent, right? Satan. And he's saying, look, that intangible malignity that's been around from the beginning, what Ahab has done is he has made it fleshed in the whale, right? He says the following: the intangible malignity which has been from the beginning, to whose dominion even the modern Christian ascribe one half the worlds, which the ancient Ophites of the East reverenced in their statue devil. Ahab did not fall down to worship it like them, but, here we go, but deliriously transferring its idea to the abhorred whale, he pitted himself all mutilated against it. You got to underline this. All that most maddens and torments, all that stirs up the lees of things, all truth with malice in it, all that cracks the sinews and cakes the brain, all the subtle demonisms of life and thought, all evil to crazy Ahab, were visibly personified and made practically assailable in Moby Dick. He piled upon the whale's white hump the sum of all the general rage and hate felt by his whole race from Adam down, and then, as if his chest had been a mortar, he burst his hot heart's shell upon it. Oh, that's good. All right, let's talk this now. So this is kind of curious, and it should remind you of some things that Ahab himself has said. So let's just rehearse this a little bit. So from Ishmael's understanding, at least, like, what is Moby Dick to Ahab? The embodiment of evil. What did you say? Representation of all evil. And what is his, then, goal? To destroy it. Right? Agreed? Right? And notice, Ishmael says on numbers of occasions, crazy Ahab, delirious, implying what? About this idea. It's nuts, right? Nevertheless, maybe it is nuts, but here's the thing. What would you call someone who is determined to destroy that which represents all evil? Yeah, but like, what kind of person are they? True, they're fanatical, but like, what are they devoting their lives to? Yeah, I mean, wait, do you guys see this as like heroic and noble, at least from the point of view of Ahab, right? Like, he is determined to take the thing which is all evil and destroy it, right? And I love that last line. Do you guys all know what a mortar is or not?
Yeah, someone who dies.
No, mortar, not martyr, although he is a martyr, I guess. No, he says it's like he was a mortar. Can you unpack this metaphor? It's really kind of cool. It says, and he says, and then as if his chest had been a mortar, he burst his hot heart's shell upon it. So, what is a mortar? Yeah, but like, be really specific. Like, yeah, but like, what is the mortar part of it?
Shell.
Wait, is the shell the same as the mortar? Will Solomon seems like he knows.
So a mortar is a small artillery piece that fires.
He definitely knows.
So,
Focus on. Start over again, my friend.
so it's a small artillery piece that has usually a
Leg,
yeah, it has a
stand.
stand that kind of adjusts at different angles, so it can fire straight up and above things, and over things. So the shell is what you put into the mortar.
So the mortar is stationary.
Yeah.
And then you put a shell in it. So let's unpack the metaphor. What is the mortar? It's Ahab. And what is the shell? Read it. His hot heart, right? So this is awesome, right? He's got a heart inside, like a mortar has a shell in it, and he shoots it over at the whale. That's his plan. And he's going to blow himself up on this whale, right? His very life, right? He's going to give to destroying this whale and this violent.
Excuse the interruption. This is a reminder that all 10th graders, including those with 2:30 athletic practices, please report to the cafeteria at the end of this period. You do not need to bring anything with you. Just come to the cafeteria and sit at an answer sheet space. Any 9th grader who did not complete the PSAT answer sheet in Ancient Studies earlier this week, please come to the cafeteria too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now let's think about this for a minute. Given all of this, what does Ishmael reveal about his madness? This has to do with the owners of the ship and this whole mission. Yeah. And so, how does he behave?
If they're completely unaware.
But how can that be if he's a lunatic? If he, Yeah, his madness is a feline, kind of cagey madness. Remember this? And so he's able to kind of suppress it. Because, of course, think about this. If you were Peleg and you were Bildad, and your captain who you hired said, like, oh, by the way, I'm going to risk everything you've invested to hunt this one whale, what would these guys say? Like, new captain, next, right? Like, there's no way they're going to let him go do that. So he's suppressed that plan in order to fool them, right? And his madness is only, or his mad plan at least, is only now revealing itself that he's safe, right? He's safe at sea. No one can tell him what to do out here. Yeah, go ahead.
Didn't he wait like 6 months before he even announced his plan?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're far away right now. They're far from Nantucket, right? So that's an important thing to see, that like he's got this kind of, and he says, right, he's madness maddened. I mean, you could argue that madness maddened is also sort of like an inverted. He's so mad that he's able to kind of like be misleading, right? Which he clearly has been to the owners. Okay, it's cunning. A word that's going to come up over and over again is monomania. Okay, some people argue this book is like a psychological portrait of a monomaniac. But I want to talk about what that means, first of all. Do you guys know, just, I mean, it's a simple word. You can decode it. What does it mean to be a monomaniac? Yeah, you're obsessed about a single thing, right? So keep an eye on that word. It'll come up over and over again in the novel, and it comes up for the first time here. So let's finish up today by on 167, okay? And, so Ishmael himself sums up, right? He says, here then was, right? So he's like, okay, this chapter about Ahab and Moby Dick is over. He says the following. Here then was this gray-headed, ungodly old man. There's that word again. You should underline that, Ned. Okay, it's on page 167. Don't move. Chasing with curses a Job's wail round the world. Now, I want to just leave you with this thought. That's a weird, do you guys know who Job is or not? Yeah, there's a book of Job in the Old Testament, right? And, we all know that the book of Jonah has a whale in it. But I wonder if you knew about the whale in Job. Yeah, in extracts it came up. But I'll just say this. Underline that. Keep your eyes peeled for the book of Job and Job's whale. All right. Good work. I don't know. Period 3, period 7. Who should be on film? That's what I want to know. Yeah, please turn those in.